HTLA Radio 1.
I don't know. I could just listen to that all night long. Maybe we'll just do the whole show and we'll just keep playing the theme over and over because that is so awesome. Welcome to Real Talk. I am your host, this intellectual Kate Taylor, and this is HTLA Radio 1 New York. If you love film, if you live film, then as always, this is the film show for you. Tonight we're going downtown and underground with Euro-style zombification. Yeah, it's about time I got to my genre, right? As always, keep in mind that with the exception of award season episodes, which are coming up, by the way, that is true. I actually missed the Golden Globes, but that's okay. And, if you listen to Hubby Crash's Film 101 for tonight, it's all about Sundance, so that's a good one. I might be pulling some stuff from there for you in a week or two. Remember that the films that I analyze are not currently in theaters. So I go beyond spoilers in this show and I break down the structure of the story of the films I compare. So if you've not yet seen them, remember they're all available on Netflix unless otherwise noted. Go watch them, get into them, then come back and tear them up with me here. You won't find unqualified art house reviews here. No one wears berets in Fierce Kitty's house. This is a film analysis show. This show is for those with an interest in not just seeing film, but being part of the history of making them. What makes them mesmerizing? The layers that equal the experience. This is what I reveal on this show. I am a storyteller. I am a screenwriter married to a director, and together we tell stories. Thus, I dissect and analyze the stories others tell, so I can constantly discover, learn, and find better ways to tell my stories to you. Again, if you more than watch film, if you, like me, become part of the process of the film you're watching for that 90 or so minutes, welcome to Real Talk. Before we get into tonight's show, I've got to take care of those generous and brilliant folks that keep me on the air for you. Tonight's episode of Real Talk is, as always, brought to you by Netflix. And it just might bring everyone together. And they're doing some really amazing things over there at Netflix now, I've got to say. I've watched a couple of their original series, and I'm really impressed. I might have a Netflix expose show one of these days. And definitely going to be doing this next one pretty soon. Universal Pictures and Studio Canal, producers of the February 2014 thriller Nonstop, starring Liam Neeson and Julianne Moore. Again, go like the film's page on Facebook at Facebook.com/nonstop. And Orville Redenbacher's Gourmet Naturals, gourmet flavor, none of the guilt, especially in this winter season. Summer's going to be here before we know it. Better get to that diet popcorn and lay off the good stuff. Please keep in mind that the opinions I'm about to express here in my show do not necessarily reflect those of HTLA Radio 1 or our sponsors or advertisers. They don't necessarily reflect HTLA Radio 1. That's kind of a oxymoronic thing, isn't it? All right, well, anyway. Lastly, for all my past, current, and future episode information, as well as forums in which to discuss what you think about my celluloid dissection, register a free profile on www.htla973.com and do some real talking of your own. If you've missed it, Meeps, this show contains uber spoilers of the films I discussed. If you want to see the films untainted by my analysis, do so. Then come and listen to this episode on the website after, because I don't want to get yelled at and, why did you tell me? That kind of thing. Don't do that. That's not good. All right, on with the show. Now, tonight we're going to be analyzing and comparing two Zombies of Us Trapped in an Apartment Building films. One from France and one from Germany. Why, Kate, you ask? Well, because first and foremost, I'm a horror writer. I've yet to dissect my genre really, so I felt it was high time to do so. And like they say, do what you know, right? So here we are. Our first film, The Horde, comes from France, and it's about a posse of crooked cops trying to arrest a gang of malevolent gangsters who just killed one of their own, but are trapped by a horde of walking dead. This is a gruesome, tight, action-packed, and claustrophobic tale of retribution and escape. Ultimately, these two opposing gangs are forced to join up to survive, making it from the penthouse to the ground floor together or perish. This film is loaded with badass attitude, weapons, and extremely creative hand-to-hand combat sequences that project the fear and paranoia that drive the fight-or-flight response of the characters when trapped in the wrong place at the wrong time. So, yeah, it's pretty good. Our second film, RAMBOK Berlin Undead, comes, obviously, from Germany. And it sees our lead character, Michael, arriving in the city to visit an ex-girlfriend he is still in love with when a terrible virus spreads at a rapid pace, turning the denizens into mindless homicidal maniacs. Gabby isn't home when Michael arrives, but he instead runs into teenage plumber's apprentice Harper. Together, they barricade themselves in an apartment when raging hordes swarm. Somehow, they must find a way to make their way out and also try to find Gabby. All right, budget and production is usually where I start. Let's talk about The Horde. 2009, directed by Yannick Dahan and Benjamin Roche. It was co-written by Yannick Dahan and Arnaud Bordas. The film stars Claude Perron of, she was actually in Amélie too, so that's mostly the film that people know from France if you haven't tipped your foot too deeply into foreign film. And Jean-Pierre Martin, produced by Capture the Flag Films. I actually have no budget or box office data for this picture, so I couldn't find it anywhere, and I searched high and low. RAMBOK 2010 is directed by Marvin Kren and is also co-written by Marvin Kren and Benjamin Hessler. It stars Michael Fwith, Tay Trebs, and Anka Gratzek, and it's produced by ZDF and Moneypenny Film Production. Oddly, I couldn't locate any box office or budget info for this film either. So just really bizarre, because they're not that old, and, it's just strange that it couldn't. But anyway, there you have it. All right, so cinematography choices and comparisons. Now, I'm going to start by saying that both are pretty equal when it comes to production value, cinematography, and realism in zombie appearance and effects. Given that, I'm going to have to surmise that they're fairly equal with budget as well. And that's also why I always start out with, my production stuff and the budgets, because they do mean a lot versus what they've made at the box office, all that kind of stuff. It actually says quite a bit to me. If something's really good and it's done really well and it's had a super low budget, well, obviously that's been a successful production. That's what you want. If it's the opposite, it's what you don't want. And I also do that because I love to compare, kind of the Hollywood machine and how we feel that you have to have like $400 million budgets to do a good film. And, whenever I find a really good quality film that's done for much, 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 much less, it kind of thumbs the nose at the notion that you need hundreds of millions of dollars to do a good film. So there you go. All right. Having said that, The Horde is a much better film when it comes to overall quality, because even though both of these films were set with characters trapped in apartment buildings, the French DP utilizes every element of a location or set in a way that the German DP either wasn't experienced enough with or didn't care to worry about as much. Now, RAMBOK is darker and more straightforward in its atmosphere, but I have to admit to it enhancing the feeling that the lead is just a misfit doomed to die from the get-go. And at the time of this writing, that was pretty much my feeling, but the more I think about it now, I have to ask myself, maybe I kind of underestimated the underwhelmingness of the visuals, and maybe that was part of the intention, kind of the desperation of the lead, just kind of his patheticness. I hate to say it like that, but it's true. Because if the intention was to impart a sense of futility, it was then successfully realized. So that's going to make a huge difference. And I wish there was actually a way without interviewing them at the time or personally or whatever it was to kind of get a feel for that, because it would change everything. But then I guess I don't want to go to a director and say, wow, the way you did that just imparted an immense sense of futility, and that wasn't their intention. That wouldn't really be a good thing either. So that's kind of career-killing stuff. All right. So the Horde, on the other hand, has an action movie feel to it. And, again, color, lighting, and texture, the layering, they're all used as an integral component of the scene rather than a to-do item to be ticked off a list. So, I wasn't impressed too much with, the cinematography for RAMBOK. And the Horde, it just is what it is. It has more of an action movie feel to it, like I said, than a horror film or anything extraordinary. But it was definitely much fuller visually than RAMBOK was. And that's an important thing. It is a film. It's not a radio show. It's not a picture. It's a film. So you need to do that. Now, director's motivations and, stuff like that I talk about a lot. And Marvin Kren, I just found out, is now participating in yet another horror anthology sequel that I recommend everyone that likes horror go see. The ABC's A Death Part 2 is currently in production, but the original one is really awesome. And you've got to get to Netflix and see it because that's where I've seen it. Now, it's 26 horror directors from around the globe, and they each take a letter of the alphabet and create a short about death. Some of them are funny, some are gruesome, and some are just really, really good. So I utterly cannot wait for part 2. If anybody was a fan of, the Japanese series that Dumplings originated out of, why can't I think of what it is now? But it's along those lines. So you have to go see it if that's your meat, because the first one was great. I can't wait to see the second one. Anyway, overall, RAMBOK succeeds as both a zombie film and as an unrequited love story, as well as a juxtaposed young love story, hope carrying into the future kind of piece. And more on that when we get to plot. Now, Yannick Dahan has only directed one short before The Horde, but I'm immensely impressed by this initial effort into feature. This is actually so much more than a zombie film. It's worthy of any American action film. And maybe he hadn't intended to make a multi-genre film here, but I think that because he's an actor and a writer first, that's how it came out and why it's more multi-layered than, the other piece. And he hasn't even remotely tapped into his talent pool yet, I think, and I'm really looking forward to whatever is coming out of his whatever next. Because if that's an initial offering, that was pretty dang good. Pretty dang good. So, as far as comparing the two of them, like I said, they're both pretty much even when it comes to what kind of films they are and, production value, all that kind of stuff. Casting, spot on for both. I didn't have an issue with anybody in any of the roles. Well, not really. We'll talk a little bit more when we get to character arcs later on about the initial character of Oriel in The Horde. But yeah, on the whole, they're both incredible zombie films, and I would definitely recommend seeing foreign films like this. Because I don't know, maybe it's just us that has a fascination with the zombie apocalypse thing now with Walking Dead and all that other kind of stuff that comes along. But there's some amazing zombie films out there. There's a zombie film called Dead Snow from Sweden, I think. Either Sweden or Norway. And it's really more comedic than, true horror. It's comedy horror. But this thing is so awesome and so amazing. It kind of starts out like Evil Dead, where they go to the cabin for the weekend and, somebody does something and these dead Nazis come back from the dead. And it was really, really wonderful and funny. And, the list just goes on and on and on. And there was actually another zombie film that I almost chose for tonight's show called Extinction. That's also out of France. And, but I chose not to throw it in there because it wasn't this trapped in an apartment building kind of theme like these two are. And then, Mutants. That's another amazing French zombie film as well. And that one is quite particular in that it's about a married couple. And there's the zombie apocalypse. And they're trying to get out of the city and get away from the zombies and get somewhere safe when the husband gets bit. And then the story turns into a strictly character piece. Like, you very rarely see a zombie after that. It's all about the wife staying with the husband and desperately trying to find something that'll prevent his transformation to a zombie. So they can stay together. And it's really powerful and it's really awesome. And it's called Mutants, but it's also a great zombie film too. So, never underestimate the power of a story just because it's of a certain genre. You can't do that. And it's like the judging the book by the cover thing, because this was one of the best, well-written, kind of poignant love stories too. And it was all revolving around a zombie film. So that's why it was pretty awesome. Now, I'm going to take my first commercial break in a second here. I'm going to take it a little bit early because I have a lot more to cover in my second segment. And, I hope you will stay tuned for that because it's going to be pretty awesome. So I will be back in 2, and we will keep going with our zombification. Be right back.
Increased prices by 60%, but they're not the only game in town. Say hello to Blockbuster. They deliver movies right to your mailbox, too. Lots of movies, unlimited movies. Blockbuster offers lots of new releases weeks before Netflix or even Redbox. Plus, Blockbuster has Blu-ray and games at no extra charge. But only Blockbuster lets you exchange your movies instantly at any one of our stores. And you get all of this for under $10 a month. So say hello to Blockbuster again.
When you have cable and can't record all your shows, you feel unhappy. When you feel unhappy, you go to happy hour. When you go to happy hour, you're up for anything. When you're up for anything, you head to a Turkish bathhouse. When you head to a Turkish bathhouse, you meet Charlie Sheen. And when you meet Charlie Sheen, you reenact scenes from Platoon with Charlie Sheen. Don't reenact scenes from Platoon with Charlie Sheen. Get rid of cable and upgrade to DirecTV. Call 1-800-DirecTV.
There are machines that can do things for us. Machines that can make things for us. Machines that can see right through us. And machines that want to be us. Want to replace us. But they are not us. There is one machine that makes us greater. A machine so instinctive, so seductive, it's as alive as we are. It doesn't click or buzz. It roars. Jaguar.
I always said shoes are like women. They inspire beautiful music.
But what about these?
Stilettos sound like this.
What does my fragrance inspire?
That's got soul.
My ties are beautiful. They don't need music.
Bringing the stars together. That's the magic of Macy's.
HTLA Radio 1.
Okay, we're back, and you're listening to Real Talk with Kate Taylor on HTLA Radio 1 New York. And we are talking about European zombies today. Yes, we are. And what makes a good European zombie film? I've got 2, and there are several more out there. So, like I always tell you, don't be afraid to, watch a foreign film. Subtitle, schmubtitle, you got to do it. So you got to read it, and maybe it'll, prod you to learn a new language too, because that's always a good thing. Knowledge is a good thing. Now, before we continue, I've got to urge all my listeners to stay tuned here after my show for Film 101, techniques, gear, interviews with A-list directors and crew. Don't forget, it's our big screen and film dream night Wednesdays. Spend 90 minutes in film school with actor-director Christopher John Taylor and make your Wednesdays just that. Big screens and film dreams, right? And tonight he's got a very special 2-part show. He's got a interview with famed director Louis Lawless after his Sundance special tonight, so you're definitely not going to want to miss it. All righty. Now, characters and character differences and plot points and devices and all that good stuff, yeah. Now, the Horde offers diametric perspectives between the cops and the gangsters and their responses both to each other and the zombie outbreak. In this film, there's subplot between every single character and the others, as well as an intimate, innate, either fear or fascination with the creatures that's kind of subtle but felt if you care to seek it out. while the Horde has heroes and anti-heroes, the one survivor has pretty much only a mild arc, and it's not a too incredibly wow factor. But this is excused by the fact that each role here has been important, and we either cheer or mourn the death of every breathing, thinking character as the film goes on. That's a good thing. I mean, how often is it, that you really care about every character that's been on the screen, and, you're either happy he's dead or sad. It's a good thing when you can really do that. And again, I chalk that up to, the director also being an actor and a writer. So, you get all that kind of layering and fleshing out of things like that. So now RAMBOK is more elementary in its storytelling, whether that's the difference between the cultures, of the industries or the writer's level, I don't know. But France and Germany really aren't that far apart that industry styles should so vastly differ in refinement. The main character, Michael's been dumped, and he can't go on until he confronts his ex, Gabby, and try to win her back one last time. And it's almost annoying how pathetic he introduces himself to us. And that goes back to what I was saying earlier about the cinematography and the visuals. And, if that was the director's intent, it was successful, because the whole thing just felt futile from the get-go, But I can surprisingly say, though, that this does lead to a nice surprise when it comes to his arc at the end. So, that's the way it goes. I want to talk a little bit about just what we were mentioning a second ago about the layering and how different that is. I think this is one of the reasons why I compare the Horde to more of an American action film than an American horror film. Because, it was a smart enough screenplay that each of the characters had their own purpose, but also they had their own purpose in relation to every other character and in relation to how they felt about the apocalypse. Because we'll see some of them, when they realize, oh my God, it's a zombie apocalypse. We're trapped in this building here on our little cop mission of vengeance, but our families are out there and there's nothing we can do to get back out there and save them. They're probably dead already. Thus, this is the end of life as I know it. But yet they still are faced with this immediate mission that they're, at a standoff with guns with gangsters right there. So their death is coming from in front and behind. And, then the gangsters start getting eaten and they realize that the cops might be able to protect them and they're like their only hope. And, then you have that kind of, well, now what do we do? And let's sit down and work out our differences kind of thing, or else we're all going to be dead. And we'll deal with the law thing and the criminal thing later, if we survive, if the world still exists after. Kind of the everything that we think is such a big deal really isn't when the zombies come kind of thing. And that was a huge thing. And the way that it was written and the way that it plays out is pretty brilliant, And for me to say that, it's quite a lot, because I'm not very free with my praises, because there's so many films out there, so many. It's rare when I come across one that actually even surprises me, If not for any other reason than, okay, that's the way I'd have written it. That's a nice surprise too, because I'm somebody that's very thorough and that does the layering thing and, make sure everybody's storylines are wrapped up and, interrelated and all that good stuff, because it'll be very disappointing to me when I go to see a film and that doesn't occur. So it's always nice when it does. But again, with RAMBOK and its initial, just 1-2 storyline, Harper really, the plumber's assistant, the teenager, he really has no purpose in this film other than an ultimate end vehicle to give us kind of hope after the destruction of the world. So we find out he's got a little girlfriend, towards the end of the film. And this is after they've fought and survived all night just to stay alive in the apartment. And, now Michael's really, well, if I'm going to die, then I have to go out there and find Gabby, because that's the only reason that I'm here. And, that's the sum and total of my pathetic existence kind of thing, And you'll see through montage in the film from the beginning, though, why I'm so, down on Michael, the character, the way I am, because he's truly pathetic and it plays out that way. That was the intent. This is an unrequited love story. He dated this girl for a while and he's like crazy in love with her, but to her, it was just a guy and he's just like this pathetic sap that she spent some time with until somebody better came along kind of thing. You know, and that's clear, you know, to everybody but Michael, obviously. So, you know, that's just a simple, straight kind of storyline. And Harper's only purpose there is to, you know, be the refuge in the apartment building for Michael until he can figure out how to get to Gabby or where she is or whatever it is. And so we can see the fighting off of the zombies. You know, so it's kind of more contrived. You know, it's one of those things like you learned in film school, you know, make sure that you start the story at the right point and things like that. And this kind of wasn't. It kind of missed that, you know, and only tell characters stories and traits and reveals that are relevant to what's going on. And it kind of wasn't, you know. The family photos of Michael had nothing to do with Gabby's short affair, you know, and the kind of whole thing, unless it was just to show us he's always been kind of pathetic. You know, I don't know, but that's kind of what the thing is. And again, if that was the director's intent, then he should have really overblown that and made it that clear. I shouldn't have to guess that. You know, is he pathetic or is he not pathetic? You know, just make your character strong and determinate and whatever it is, make him be that as much as possible. This is the big screen. You know, he should be bigger than life, especially if you're going to turn this guy into the protagonist of your film, you know, which in the end, he kind of does. But because he's been so pathetic throughout the whole film, we really don't care at that point anymore, you know. And as I'm talking more, I'm realizing more about that. Yeah, no, I really didn't care at the end, you know. So anyway, you know, that's a critical and important thing. If your character is going to be a hero and he's going to be the tough guy and his arc is to find sensitivity, then make him a real, you know, pompous, cocky, arrogant, whatever. So the arc is that much contrasted when it occurs, you know, because subtleties are nice and they're great, you know, for intellectual film. But if you're going to have a zombie action film, then you can go over the top with your characters. And let's talk about actually who the main character is in the Horde, because each character in that film, it's an ensemble piece, obviously, because you care about the head gangster, you care about the head cop who's running this operation, and you care about his partner, the girl, who ultimately winds up being, you know, the only survivor and the true protagonist, and who was actually the true, you know, whole point of the story. So we find out later on that Osem and Aurora, which are the male and female cops in this film, are kind of having a secret affair, and she's pregnant. And, you know, so we kind of find that out during the whole zombie thing, you know. And obviously he doesn't really care about her. It was just well, we're sleeping with each other because we're partners kind of thing. And, well, the whole thing starts, let me just backtrack just a little bit. I'm not even sure if I go into the whole story thing. I think I do. Yeah, I do. But, well, I guess we'll talk about that in the next segment after the commercial break. But what I can say, though, is, well, it's funny because there's the theme of unrequited love, I guess, in this one, too, then. Because, you know, Aurora's having an affair with this cop who, you know, is just, like, kind of sleeping with her because he's just that kind of arrogant, cocky, you know, like I was just talking about. But here she is now pregnant. And now here's the zombie apocalypse. And they're still getting shot at by the criminals. And it's just like everything at once. When it rains, it pours kind of thing. And you actually feel that kind of, it was great storytelling when you feel that kind of urgency. And you can kind of put yourself in that situation. You know, if you're a female, you know, oh my God, you know, here I am pregnant, I'm getting shot at, the zombies are coming, and what the hell am I doing? You know, that kind of thing. And you literally get to witness that with each one of these characters, whether it's verbal and dialogued and scripted in there, or it's just like, you know, the expression on the face of the old cop when he puts the grenade in his mouth and lets all the zombies overtake him so they can get away. You know, it's that kind of resigned, well, I had a good life and this is a good way to go out and I'll be saving them guys. And, you know, wordlessly you get to realize this is exactly what he's thinking. So that's a good, you know, film. It's good writing and it's good acting and it's what it's supposed to be when it's like that. And every character in this film has that. As far as RAMBOK goes, no, it doesn't have that. It doesn't even have, like I said, the fact that Michael and Harper just meet for the first time that night because he's knocking on Gabby's apartment door and she's not there and the zombies are coming. So Harper brings him in to save his life kind of thing, and that's it. There's nothing for us to care about before, during, or after. It's just, there's nothing there. And, the whole entire thing revolves around his longing for this girl who doesn't give a crap about him and who's probably at some other guy's house right now, and worried about him getting killed and not even giving a second's thought to this poor sap, And, yeah. And then we find out later that Harper has a girlfriend too. And, well, who cares at that point? God. But it does get kind of tender and kind of sweet at the end. And it does juxtapose. Well, it attempts to juxtapose to, kind of, well, I'll explain it later when we get to plot and stuff after the commercial break. But it attempts. It attempts. It's a good attempt. It could have been done better, but it's a good attempt. But I don't blame the director for that, although he was a co-writer on this film. I think that he should stick to more of the horror part, and leave more of the character development to whomever his co-writer is or whatever it was, because I don't think either one were strong enough with character development for this film. Because it was well done. It was an entertaining film. Like, I didn't want to shut it off. It wasn't a bad movie, but it could have been so much better. And each scene that goes by, you're like, damn it, why wasn't that a better scene? It could have been so good. And it just wasn't, and I think I kept watching kind of hoping the next scene would be better, and, yeah, it was almost predictable in the end, too, what occurs. But we'll get to that a little bit after this commercial break. We've got one more commercial break for you. And stay with me, please. 2 minutes. Be right back.
When your cable company keeps you on hold, you get angry. When you get angry, you go blow off steam. When you go blow off steam, accidents happen. When accidents happen, you get an eye patch. When you get an eye patch, people think you're tough. When people think you're tough, people want to see how tough. And when people want to see how tough, you wake up in a roadside ditch. Don't wake up in a roadside ditch. Get rid of cable and upgrade to DirecTV. Call 1-800-DirecTV.
Netflix increased prices by 60%, but they're not the only game in town. Say hello to Blockbuster. They deliver movies right to your mailbox, too. Lots of movies, unlimited movies. Blockbuster offers lots of new releases weeks before Netflix or even Redbox. Plus, Blockbuster has Blu-ray and games at no extra charge. But only Blockbuster lets you exchange your movies instantly at any one of our stores. And you get all of this for under $10 a month. So say hello to Blockbuster again.
No one just hands you the title, most advanced technology in its class. It needs to be earned. Earned with smart beam headlamps. Earned with vented temperature control seats. Earned with an 8.4-inch touchscreen. And if you're driving one, you know what it means to earn something.
Euphoria, Calvin Klein.
HTLA Radio 1.
Okay, we're back, and you're listening to Real Talk with Kate Taylor on HTLA Radio 1 New York. And, if anybody listens to my husband's Crash Talk, he's famous for smoking his cigarettes on his show. And I try not to smoke while I'm doing my shows, but, sometimes you just have to. So if you happen to hear a puff or two, that's just me. So there you go. I've said it. All right. Now, my last segment's always my funnest one. I know that's not a word, but I like the word. And that's because I get into the subplots and the climaxes and the endings. And hopefully if the films are good, they are too. Not always, but that could be fun too. So, the Horde starts out, now I can actually tell you what's going on here. Starts out with a cop's funeral and the widow seeking revenge on the gangsters that ended his life, but begging his partner not to risk any of the lives of the rest of the team for retribution. Now, Wassem is that lead cop, played by Jean-Pierre there that we were talking about earlier. And Aurora, played by Claude Perron, is a strong yet fragile but seemingly inconsequential female when compared to Jean-Pierre's character. You know, we throughout the whole film think he's the hero and the protagonist, you know. And initially, he's really the only one that arcs in the film. He's torn between honoring his partner's widow's wishes to protect the rest of her husband's police team and his need for vengeance. And then he's also realizing how fragile all of life is as he sees his friends die horribly one by one, either by the gangsters or the zombies. So you actually see on his face in one of these scenes that he has this moment of, wow, I wish I could do this all over again, you know, but it's brief. And ultimately, though, you know, he is an action star through and through here, and that's it. And, you know, there is that twist, like I said, that we think he's the protagonist and the hero and kind of the star of the film throughout the whole entire thing, you know, until the end. But we'll talk about the end in the next one. So now, the major difference in these films, really, and say this with me, Meeps, because this is the foundation of everything I say is quality in this life. And you know what it is, because I say it every week and all the time in all my shows. It's the layers. You know, layers make life, right? They make life interesting. Now, the Horde has them. And RAMBOK just does not. It simply does not. Now, I'm not just talking about character arcs or visuals or structure. I'm talking about the ever-important subplot and level of the viewer's engagement. You know, Horde has the cop angle, which really ceases to be at all important when the criminals are just as much lunch as the cops. And Wassem realizes this briefly at this arc's apex. And then there's the interpersonal relationship between the cops and how the gangsters feel about their mates. Then the dynamics between the cops and the criminals. Then each character and themselves when it comes to facing the uselessness of everything they've done to that point, when now faced with annihilation in the worst way by a force that all their badass selves can't eradicate. You know, it's truly humbling. And we see that on every single character, you know, at some point in the film. Now, here's the twist. The lead gangster, Adewale, and the female cop, Aurora, who we come to learn is pregnant, and pregnant by Wassem, actually. And it's an amazing scene, too, when he dies, you know, and she's there witnessing the death of the father of her child, you know, right now, too, even if they're not going to stay together because she was just an affair to him. You know, her being pregnant is the primary motivation for her getting out alive. And, you know, then here's the confusing thing, though. I had to ask myself why, though, too, because the world's gone to hell. It's the zombie apocalypse. So, you know, it's kind of, you know, and you can kind of see her pain and feel her pain in a couple scenes there. She is kind of torn. You can tell she's thinking about that, you know, especially when she tells Wassem she's pregnant and, you know, he hadn't known. So, you know, at first I thought that was just like a plot device to add more, you know, conflict and drama and tension, et cetera, et cetera. But, you know, it's, I've used it in one of my films, so I can't really talk too much. So, yeah, I have in Cornered. That was one of the devices I used in Cornered too. So, all right, once they stop outside, you know, once Adewale and her get out of the building, they finally, all night long, and the dawn is breaking, which is another, you know, trite device. But the dawn is breaking. They've made it through the night, and they're out in the courtyard in this building, in this projects in France. They stop to catch their breath. And all of a sudden she pulls out a gun and she shoots Adewale in the head. Because, you know, earlier in the film we learned that it was because of him. You know, they were all there in the first place because he was the one that, the funeral in the beginning, you know, it was his gang that got the head cop killed there, right? So, you know, she kills him. So all that, you know, and she kills him. Now, the final screw of this film is her standing there, exhausted, covered in blood. The sun's coming up, and she just shot out a Wally in the head, and she's pregnant, and she's like, oh, all right, well, I got to get out of here now. And you just hear the growling zombies getting closer and closer, and then they cut to credits. So that's the climax in the end of Horde. And, when you're watching it, it's kind of okay, and then you take a moment afterwards, though, and you're like, well, the whole entire thing was kind of pointless then. If she just did all that and now the zombies are coming closer and she's probably got like 3 bullets left if she's got any, and it's just kind of, but for what it is what it is. And it was a great action film and incredibly entertaining. And, unless you're my husband where everything absolutely has to be logical and make sense and be realistically portrayed, you can actually enjoy it for what it is. And that's it. You don't think about the after. Well, what does she do later on? And, that kind of thing. What about prenatal care? All that good stuff. So you can actually just enjoy it for what it is. And it's all good. The scenes are great. They're action-packed. It's a great thing. That's what I think. So I guess my final recommendation is definitely see it. Because it's good. Now, RAMBOK here, here's the different thing. It's got more of a personal kind of climax, and it's admirably attempted to be kind of a dual climax, but it's pretty rudimentary. Now Michael finally finds Gabby, right? Gabby comes home, but that's because she's a zombie, and home is the place that she instinctually knows to go to after she's turned into a zombie. So just as he's sitting awaiting his own imminent change from being bitten, helping Harper get his girlfriend safe from the zombies, we see a juxtaposed young Harper with his girl racing off on a bicycle. And here's another weird twist about RAMBOK. For some reason, the zombies are afraid of bright lights. So they've equipped this bicycle with these bright flashing strobe lights that when they flash them at the zombies run away like they're vampires and it's sunlight or something. Really odd. They don't explain it. It's kind of weird. But okay. So he's racing off on a bicycle equipped with a light that the zombies hate down the cobblestone streets of Berlin to the docks to get into a boat to safety, implying rather vaguely that humanity will go on in the lives and loves of these 2 young, smart, and attractive survivors. So while Michael holds a still not interested even as a zombie Gabby, right? And that was probably the most pathetic part of the film too. So, he's sitting there. He's still human. He's bitten. He's getting ready to turn. He's just sacrificed himself so the young lovers can get away and have a hope for the future. And in walks zombie Gabby. And you can see his heart swell in his chest there, and, he stands up and he goes over to her and hugs her. And all she's trying to do is get the hell away from him. Even at that point, she doesn't want anything to do with him. She's dead and she doesn't want anything to do with him. So, it's just really sad to watch, seriously. But then you see him resign his heart to his unreturned feelings and he allows the change to overtake him. Okay? So that's the climax in the end of that film. Hey, at least they can hunt and kill together, and she might forget all the things about him that creeped her out, and us, in the first place, right? So, but the bottom line is, for as much as I loved Horde, and I did enjoy RAMBOK, don't get me wrong, just because the lead character is kind of creepy and not very endearing. You really truly have to care about characters, right? To care about the film. At least that's what they teach us in film school. But I didn't really care about Michael, and I didn't care about Gabby. Obviously, she wasn't in the film until the last scene. And I didn't care about Harper and his girlfriend, or actually any character in the film. I still enjoyed the film. So, that says something. And while I can't quite put my finger on what Berlin Undead had to offer, they were both entertaining and enjoyable films, despite the fact that neither satisfied me in the end as far as story goes. So there you go. And as always, I'd love to hear what you thought of both films once you watch them, as well as my analysis of them here. So make sure to let me know. HTLA973.com. You can do that out there. But, and also, though, I'd like to have you check out those other films that I said. Mutants, that's definitely a great French zombie film. Extinction, that is another German zombie film. And, or is it French? Well, I can't remember right now. But Extinction and Mutants, you have to see those two. And definitely see The Horde and see RAMBOK. Frontiers is another French zombie film. And this is going back now a while. This was one of the first foreign zombie films I'd ever seen. And again, it takes place, it's very reminiscent of when Sarah Connor goes on the lam in the desert, after the whole Jeep episode and, the storm is coming. That scene in Terminator. And that's what the entire cinematography of Frontiers looks like. And, it's a decimated Paris, and they go out to a farmhouse in the country, and they're just trying to survive, et cetera, et cetera. You know the whole story. It's the same typical zombie plotline. But it was really, really good. And it's very, very high tension and excellent, And that was one of the first. And I think all of these films kind of followed after that. So, definitely see Frontiers as well. Yeah. And, I did look for American zombie films to compare to this, too. Because I love to compare foreign films to the Hollywood production machine and the Hollywood formula. And, that's generally the idea of the show, is to compare the Hollywood formula with, other industries' formula. Because I love to incorporate them as much as I can. So I love to learn and see other things. But I really couldn't find a zombie film. I guess Dawn of the Dead, because they're trapped in a mall, would be kind of comparable. To that, and it would be more comparable to the Horde because of the interpersonal relationship between the characters, obviously, than RAMBOK would be. I think RAMBOK would have been just fine as a regular love story and not even included the zombies. I think the zombies were kind of ancillary, to that whole thing. But, and then you have The Land of the Dead, and that's the one that I actually was just talking about that yesterday with Dennis Hopper and John Leguizamo, where they built the building to keep the zombies out, and the zombies get smart. And that was good. That was good, too. But the storylines, they're all pretty much the same. They all end the same. Zombie sequel. So that's pretty much it. I didn't even bother to compare Hollywood. It's a straightforward classic structure, all of these films. But again, the difference with Horde is that it took on more of the structure of an action film than a horror film. So that was interesting and that was good. And for that alone, definitely go see the film, rent the film, Netflix it, whatever you've got to do. Because it's really good. And we're all about good movies here at Real Talk. Bad ones too, but mostly good ones. So next week, probably we'll dive a little bit more into anything that I find interesting at Sundance. Because now I've got to check all the ones out that hubby's going to be talking about on Film 101 tonight. But, definitely, if you have any recommendations, any films you'd like me to analyze or compare, any suggestions, films you thought were wonderful and amazing and you think I should see them, because I'm all about new stuff, please, again, do we have a Twitter for Real Talk? I think it's at Real Talk. You can tweet me at Real Talk. You can always tweet me at HTLA 973, right? Yeah. And HTLA973.com, that is the website. So please definitely get in touch with me there. We're going to be rolling out our new Flash website soon, too. And, it's at Real Talk 973. So that's the Twitter. And that new Flash Talk is going to be... Did I say Flash Talk? I've got too many shows that's got talking. The new Flash website is going to be amazing. So you're going to want to see that once we roll that out. That's actually going to be coming out next weekend, I think. Next weekend we're going to be doing the website. That's right. Oh, I'm so excited. But, yes, let me know. And I will definitely be happy to review any film that you think I should see. I'll be happy to do that. That would be awesome. So... yes, as I count bullets and batteries and continue to plan my post-apocalyptic wardrobe needs, I'm going to wind down another episode of Real Talk. I'd like to thank HTLA for giving me the opportunity to put my film school education to good use for you here each week. Thank you to all of those involved in making the films I analyze here for you. A big thank you to my crew and always to my leading man forever, HTLA producer and my husband, Chris Taylor. Don't forget to go to the website to check out all of our original programming, and do not go anywhere because Film 101 has a special interview with famed director Louis Lawless coming right up. Tune in next week as I dish for real about all things real. Good night, meeps.
HTLA Radio 1.